Hey, hey, hey. This is interesting.
I know, right?
I know. We're not together. This is our first time not together doing a podcast recording.
I know. So we're moving up, right?
I know.
Now we're doing virtual. And why are we doing virtual today, Stace?
Well, our guests are in New York and we are not. And we really like them so much. We're like, let's try the web platform business. So here's where we are. Here's where we are.
Super excited about this and having the opportunity to talk to them, right?
Mm-hmm. And they're the perfect guests because we're delving into the topic of sex tonight. And these guys have some really candid conversations about sex like we have not heard two men have, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the things that really made me want to talk to them, because I have not seen men really talk about sex so candidly, like you said, the way that they do. You know, usually men don't, or I shouldn't say usually, but you don't see it very often where men are talking about sex in a very deep, emotional way.
Meaningful. And I'm throw out healthy, in a healthy way.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, in a very, very healthy. Mm-hmm. You feel like you're being like a fly on the wall. You know what I mean? They're hanging out and we get to listen. You get to eavesdrop.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. So great content. We're going to tell you more about them very, very soon before we get things started, because it's a sexy topic tonight. I want to hear from Tone. Like, let's say things are about to go down for you, right? Lights are dim, going, not that down. Or maybe. More on that later. But you're about to have a good night. Lights are dim. You're in the mood. You're with that right guy. What song is playing in the background for you?
Ooh, what a good question.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. Let me see. The first thing that comes to my mind is Floetry Say Yes. That's a very hot and spicy, slow.
It is a sexy song.
Right?
It really, really is. It really is. That's a good one.
Thank you. What about you? What song would it be for you?
I knew you were going to throw it back to me. So I'm gonna always go with my faithful Prince. There's no sexier artist than Prince to me.
Very true.
I mean, he's the king of. So it would be a double play now, because you got to have a double play. And I'm going to start it off with Darling Nikki.
Oh, that you might have trumped mine on that one.
That's the mood, and that says I'm serious. This is going down as serious. And then we're going to go into Insatiable after that. That's me.
Two good selections. That's good.
I know.
Good. I got a question for you.
Oh, Lord.
Are you insatiable, Stacy?
See, there you go. There you go.
Well, so inquiring minds want to know. That would be me and our audience.
Can I tell you later? Yeah, because inquiring minds don't really want to know. I think you want to know.
Okay.
With that, right.
Fair enough. So who we got on the show tonight, girl?
We are talking to the brothers from Love God, Love Sex. As we said, we love these guys. We can't wait to talk to them. We know you're going to love them too. We get a male perspective on things tonight, right?
Yeah.
And so they're going to provide that for us. So you ready?
I'm ready. Let's bring
them on.
Hey, Heath.
All right. Hey, what's going on?
Hello.
Hey.
You guys doing all right? Thank you for having us.
Wow.
We're so excited you're here.
I know.
We're glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. We were just saying some very lovely things about you. So don't disappoint us.
Try not to.
The pressure is on.
No pressure.
Yeah, we'll see. Committed to truth and honesty and being accountable for what we represent and the mission that we're on. So we'll see.
And I want to get into that.
Absolutely.
Love God, love sex. I want you each, and let's start with Jamie. 30 seconds. Tell us who you are and why you do what you do, like an elevator pitch. 30 seconds. I'm timing you.
Okay. Well, like you said, I'm Jamie. I am a vocalist, an independent vocalist. I am one half of the almighty co-hosting duo of the Love God, Love Sex podcast. And I'm also a independent PR consultant for a couple of agencies in the entertainment and event space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I need the why.
Why I do what I do.
Why are you doing this podcast with me?
I've heard enough women in my circle and my cipher complain about men. I, as a man, and the men in my family and in my circle have complained enough about women. I'm tired of the gender wars. I want to see men and women, come together and unite and change the world with love.
That's a great answer.
Perfect.
My name is Heath, based out of New York City. I am a media head. I'm a podcaster, and once in a while I like to write. And part of this podcast now for about 2 years, the Love God, Love Sex, started it with Jay because I love God and I love sex, and mainly wanted to talk about sex in a more comprehensive, loving way. I give credit to anyone who talks about sex because I feel like it's a loaded topic and there's different avenues in which we can talk about it. But I wanted to talk about it from a perspective of love, connection, community, and felt that that was what most of the people in my peer group were struggling with. So we did put this together, and now we're doing what we said we wanted to do, which is talk about sex and love in this context of community and connection.
Do you talk about God at all? I only ask because it's in the name. Does that come into play on the show?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did a whole episode called "Hey God, Are You There?" because one of the big points of feedback that we got from season 1 was that people didn't really understand the love God and love God, love sex. So we did a whole episode talking about, G is not always a big G. It could be a small G. It could be your personal culture, how you feel about things, the way you move. So it's not necessarily love God from a religious standpoint, but it is symbolic to the approach that you might have for a deity. The way that we talk about sex is kind of the approach that you would have for a deity. It comes from a place of worship, a place of service. So that's partially where the love God and love God, love sex comes from.
And I'm going to say also ethics. Big thing we stress on the podcast is how you treat somebody. I think one of the best things we did was we talked about hookup culture, and you have the situationship, and then someone comes over and you constantly hear stories of she came over and talk about she hungry, she want to eat, and this idea of, well, you're spending your body with someone, you're spending your time with someone. What does it mean to do what Jay just said in his acts of service? Feed somebody, walk them downstairs, make sure they got safely into the Uber, text me when you get home, I want to make sure you're home safe. These ideas of what does it mean to treat somebody as they should be treated, which is like a human being. And that's a big part of our ethical push when we talk about the context of sex and community and, again, in connection.
I mean, if you can have somebody in your bed, you can at least make sure they eat.
I mean,
or make sure they get home safely.
Or make sure they get home safely. Yeah.
Very true.
Agreed.
Very true. I'll kick us off if you don't mind, Tone.
No, go right ahead.
Because you guys have a very healthy perspective on sex. I want to know, what is your earliest memory of learning about sex, and how did you do that? Was it somebody sitting you down with a book? Was it porn? Was it talking to friends? Like, what did that look like for you?
For me, it was probably too many R-rated movies that my dad allowed me to watch when I was a kid. I've been aware of sex since I was about 4 or 5 years old and always interested in it. My dad had a stack of Playboys that I sometimes would see, in the nightstand. So I was getting a lot of feedback. And then my mother was a nurse. So as I got older, about 9 years old, she would talk to me about, AIDS at the time was really big in the late 80s, early 90s. The AIDS epidemic still obviously with us to this day, but not as virulent and as most people are not as aware of it as they were at that time. Talking to me about condoms, about safe sex. So I've always had a nice golden thread through my life about sex, whether it's about practice, about safety. And then in my teen years, I actually became an HIV/AIDS peer educator, where I was going around talking to teens about safe sex and condoms and dental dams and safety. And so sex has always been a part of my narrative, going back to, like I said, into the early 80s for me when I was a child. It's just something that I've always been interested in, something I've always enjoyed talking about, and something that I always wanted to make a part of my life, my public sphere of my life, because obviously a part of my private sphere, but the public sphere of my life.
I kind of had the same onset, seeing R-rated and actually X-rated movies. I remember my mom walked in on me watching Playboy, and, she was about to get on me, but she talked to me instead and was basically just like, the first lesson I learned was that it was for grown-ups. And I'm kind of glad I learned that lesson first, because I watched a lot of my friends have it, junior high school, and I saw how it was ruining and I mean literally ruining their lives. Like, kids who could have been 5-star athletes is losing their mind over some sex. And I thought I was going to be a virgin until I got married. You know what I mean? And then got out here and after college, early mid-20s, and lost my mind. Made up for lost time.
So I'm curious about that. You thought you were going to be a virgin until you were married, because I definitely don't normally hear men make comments like that. Is that something that you were that was taught in your household?
Oh yeah, I come from a very religious household.
Mm-hmm.
So
Same here.
It was kind of like, and I mean, not as I got older and I would tell women that I was a virgin and saw how excited they got, thinking that they could be the first, it kind of became a talking point. So, I mean, it wasn't all for naught, and it wasn't all just like rigidity, and it became fun, honestly. Being a virgin is fun.
It has its perks.
It has its perks.
Some benefits.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely same for me. Growing up in a really religious household, it was expected, at least from my mother's perspective, that I would wait until I got married, because she saw how much, or in her experiences, men had really lost a lot in their lives, chasing tail, as the old folks used to say.
Can we curse on here?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Good.
Well, I don't know about you, Toni, but I'm feeling like a heathen right now.
Look, I have so many questions.
Go ahead. That's what we're here for.
I'm not to be reckless. I just want to be comfortable and give you all of the authenticity.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask away. This is what we're here for.
Yes. Dig in.
I mean,
Dig in.
Look, I would be lying if I'm not curious about whether. So, Jamie, you said you didn't make it. Heath, did you make it to marriage?
I started pretty early on in an embarrassing way, starting to have sex 15 years old.
Oh,
So
my.
yeah. So, really, it embarrassed myself in the process, and then kind of backed out for a little bit into my early 20s. But yeah, no, again, it was just something I was interested in and had the opportunity, and something that has always been a part of my narrative, been a part of my life narrative, and will be for the foreseeable future. So yeah, no, it didn't stick, much to my mother's chagrin and anger.
Does she know?
Oh yeah, she knows. My mother's listened to our podcast. She calls me the professor and Jamie the practitioner.
I'm in the field doing all
Yeah. And I'm the one doing the analysis.
I love it.
Yeah. The professor and the practitioner.
I love it. But tonight we're going to talk about good sex and bad sex.
Sure.
And that was going to be the next thing that I was, one of the questions that I wanted to ask is like, what do you think are the necessary ingredients for good sex?
Jay, please.
Okay.
Come right this way, sir. We have a table waiting for you.
Usher us right on in.
Yeah, right.
I think one of the first things, and we talk about this a lot, is communication. And that starts with, if you're in a committed relationship and y'all are living in the same place, that starts with the good morning conversation, the breakfast conversation. Like, what things are you talking about? What kind of understanding are you giving your person for the day that they're about to have? What kind of little crumbs are you leaving for them to latch on to for when they get home? How are you setting up? Are you sending them messages throughout the day? Like, yo, I can't wait to see you tonight. Like things like that, communication. I think intimacy is a really big piece of it as well. All of the things that go on outside of the bedroom, I think, are what set the stage for a great bedroom experience. And I think just kind of having a heart of a giver, as somebody who's really into servicing your partner, I think there's a lot of pleasure that can come from that. Most of the people I talk to have said to me, it really turns me on to know that I'm turning on my partner. I feel like that is something that's a through line in every good sex scenario that I've ever heard of. So I think having a heart of service is another key element for a good sexual experience.
I love that answer. And as you were giving it, I was thinking, like, in my own experience, I was married. And those type of things that you just talked about would generally only happen when my partner wanted sex. So it wasn't like a thing that would happen as a regular occurrence, and I feel like sometimes it can be a little transactional, it's like, let me do this so that later on, the mood will be set, instead of it being like a regular thing that happens in a relationship. Because I feel like if you did, everybody would probably get more sex.
Let me just say this. Heath and I have said this offline, online. There's a little bit of transaction in every relationship.
Agreed.
I think as long as you don't walk away feeling undervalued, devalued, dehumanized, that's really what the key is in terms of like balancing out the transactionality of a relationship or a situation. Sometimes we have to push buttons to get certain results. Sometimes that has to happen, and that could be part of the transaction. But again, like if I know the foot massage is your entryway to sex, of course I'm going to be giving you more foot massages. But that doesn't mean that this foot massage is only demeaned to get the sex. I might still enjoy just giving you foot massages because I like your feet, or because you like it, and it doesn't have to go anywhere. But I think there's a little bit of transactionality in every relationship.
I think I agree with you. And I guess I know as women, we don't want it to feel like, legit, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what they are those are triggers that you're talking about. They're like the triggers that you need in a relationship. That quite honestly, if you're married, you have kids, you got a lot of responsibility going on every single day, and finding time for sex is a hard thing to do. Those triggers are important because it's a communication between you and your partner who are both in it day to day. But that time together is important, that intimacy is important. So that could be a foot massage or a phone call or a sexy text or whatever. Those are triggers that you hope will lead to that, a time that will benefit you both.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. I just want to add on to what Jay said is, for me, and Jay and I've talked about this, we've thought about building a whole season around this, which is listening. Mm-hmm. We have highlighted, underlined, bolded, italicized, billboarded this whole concept of listening. It really goes over a lot of people's heads. Coming from our perspective, from man to women, we just stress the men really listening, and listening not just about what you think you can bring up later on that may, again, as you just said, Toni, help you seal the deal in the bedroom, but really understanding the emotional character and content that your partner is bringing to you. Everything rated from childhood trauma to childhood joys to current joys, work dramas, work traumas, all that really goes into understanding the person as a holistic human being. But when you create a culture of listening, it makes the sex a lot better. Even if you're just talking simply about, hey, I'm thinking of ordering these knives off, Cuisinart, I'm ordering these knives off QVC. You would think that that's such a mundane, silly thing. But in reality, when you create a culture of listening and you're just always creating that space where someone feels safe, and they feel free to be vulnerable and unjudged, it just creates and leads a pathway to a door of great sex. And I think people just don't see it that way because, as you just mentioned, they see it as transactional. Oh, it's the kiss on the neck. It's the holding hands 5 minutes before we walk into the restaurant and 5 minutes before we go to the car. You look at it as very transactional when listening is just something that is, I think a lot of people are just missing out on, especially men sometimes. Women too, but men sometimes.
How do you get there? Let's unpack that a little bit. How do you get to that safe space though?
Well, for me, it's going to be different for everyone. And so one of the things we stress is you have to learn your partner, and that takes time. For a lot of people who sometimes engage in casual sex, that may not be your focus because you may be juggling multiple situationships and you don't have the time or the bandwidth to really delve deep into creating safety. So if you are taking that time and you're trying to have a dedicated partner and you want to build safety, I think the first thing is just showing that you show up consistently and that you are using your ears more than you're using your mouth. I honestly cannot, again, underscore, highlight, bold, or billboard how critical just taking your time and sitting in silence when someone's talking, making good eye contact. Your body language shows that you're open, your body showing that you're receiving everything they're saying, and then being able to follow some of the more important active listening techniques like paraphrasing, asking pertinent questions, stopping to make sure you understand that you guys are on the same page and that you heard them correctly. These are some of the things that we've talked about on our TikTok, and we've gone through active listening techniques. Employing all those, I think, over time, because trust takes time, show someone that you're safe to talk to. And then the last thing is making sure you're not telling their business, right? Someone tells you something traumatic or even playful, and next thing you know, you've told your friend or you told some other people, especially if you share a friendship circle, that's not cool. But showing that you can hold a secret and that you can hold their heart. I always tell people, you want to tell people that when they come to the corridors of their heart, before you walk through it, that you take off your shoes, that time is sacred space.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think listening is just important to a healthy relationship, period. Never mind. I mean, with sex, it's just an added bonus. But, I think that's an important aspect of just having a healthy relationship, which I think you're right. People are always, what do they say, listening to speak or waiting to speak.
Yeah.
Instead of actively listening. And so a lot of stuff does get missed. You're absolutely right.
And so when it comes to bad sex, I think women think that men don't really have bad sex. You get an orgasm, getting the big reward. And so we think that men don't have bad sex. But what does that look like from your point of view? What does that look like?
Jay, let you go. Jump in.
Jamie. Quiet.
I was going to say, listen,
Jamie's had bad
funky
sex,
box. That's what we can start. I mean, obviously, if it's not, the hygiene is off, we're not even getting there. But let's just say if the hygiene is off, that could kill everything. What else can lead to bad sex? I mean, if you don't feel safe, you know what I mean? I think a lot of times women think that men who show up to the bedroom hard feel safe. It's not always the case. It's very tactile for us to be in a situation, be excited that we're going to have this experience and be able to get in the right shape. But not once has she asked, do you like X or do you not like X or are you into blah, blah, blah? Things like that, what we're talking about, this communication, taking time to learn your partner and understand them. If that's what leads to good sex, then not doing that, not putting that in place, not having that can lead to bad sex. I also think when things feel rushed, for me, I've had this experience a lot of time with oral. I feel like women have this one size fits all approach where all I got to do is come and like hawk to her. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like she's going viral for like bad information. To me, it's bad information. It's like not everybody likes sloppy. I don't like that. Like don't spit on me. I've had to stop plenty of women mid suck. Just like, yo, please stop. Like don't do this. Please stop. Don't do this anymore. So it's like, asking questions or not asking questions can lead to bad sex, or using a one size fits all or cookie cutter copy and paste approach can lead to bad sex. Those have been the worst experiences for me.
Bad sex for me is a sex that you can feel the person doesn't trust you or trust the environment or trust the experience. Mm-hmm. So they're like closed, they're frigid, they're rigid, they're somewhat demanding. Sometimes everything comes out as, crazy, not crazy in the sense of referring to what we call mental illness, but crazy in the sense of quick statements or statements that feel, again, unsafe. Like what's going on? I think when you create an environment of trust, that is another key besides listening leads to trust, is a bedrock for really ecstatic, great sex. And when trust is not there, as like Jay said, a lot of us as guys, we also get stereotyped into, well, your dick is hard and you came, so that's it. But the guys will tell you that the sex was whack or it wasn't all that. And it has nothing to do with techniques or moves solely. It has to also do with the vibe and the energy. And if the vibe and the energy is not good, you're going to say, this is not healthy. And I've heard of some of my women friends, when they describe great sex, they don't give me titillating details of, his penis size or thickness, or he did this, he bent me over like this. They talk about a man matching their energy, a man who can make me, feel excited and be excited about myself, my body, about who I am, about who they are and who we are together in this moment. It's never about the titillating details that sometimes watching porn will convince you sex is about. So bad sex to me is just bad energy.
When did you recognize that? Because, Heath has been getting down since he was 14. So when did you recognize the difference between good and bad? Was it being in a relationship with somebody, or were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When you have trust, sex in a trusting, loving relationship, it teaches you a lot about your own life and teaches you about the life of the other person. And then you get to co-create, and you need room to experiment and make mistakes. And when you're making mistakes in a loving environment, it's just like raising children or any other type of relationship, you and a boss, and you're free to make mistakes and it's okay. You learn a lot better. You learn a lot quicker. And you learn to respect what's happening to the other person when they make mistakes. And that's where I learned a lot of it. Definitely didn't learn it in my early 20s. It took being in a relationship and growing with somebody, listening more than I'm speaking, and being responsive to their needs to really get to a point of, no matter what sexual interaction I have, trust needs to be here. Now, some people can fabricate trust very quickly. You have pickup artists who have books and tomes written about how do you establish trust very quickly in the nightclub or the bar lounge. And they'll talk about it. Trust is required, and you need to fabricate it in a certain amount of time to get her to come home with you the first night. Why? Because we know that trust, again, is the golden thread throughout a great experience, or at least to get to the bedroom. And then, of course, you get into whether you're going to be transactional or you're going to be, full of gratitude and be a giver and serve in that moment. That then becomes another issue. But I didn't learn that until to my mid to late 20s. And I did it through being in a relationship, but a lot of reading, talking to women, talking to my women friends. It really helps you learn a lot when you can listen across the table and just be quiet and take it in.
Yeah. I mean, I learned in a relationship too what good and bad sex was. With my first long-term partner. And the good sex that we had kind of came from days or nights where we talked first, when it was just us kicking it at the crib, making dinner, eating, just cracking jokes, chilling, and then organically the energy just kind of bubbles up for that, and that's what made a good experience. But I also remember times when I could tell she was doing something that she did for somebody in the past and it didn't work for me. And I would be like, I could understand she's trying to recreate it because that was a good experience for her. But I always wanted to be like, yo, I'm not him. And whatever you're trying to recreate with me that you had with him or them or whoever, talk to me about it first. Like, because maybe we can recreate it in a different way and put our own spin on it. But like, Heath was talking about, like that comes from vibes and energy. You know what I mean? Any one single act is not going to bring you the greatest amount of pleasure, but that one single act plus some vibes and energy, yo, Mount Everest. We're climbing mountains right now.
Yeah.
Toni, what is bad sex?
Oh, I didn't know you were going to throw that at me.
Yeah, I know.
I think for me, bad sex would be sex without some sort of connection with another person. You know, some sort of emotions. I'm not, and I know this is one of the things we're going to talk about, but like I'm not really into the casual sex. So for me, that would be bad sex. So unless I have some sort of involvement or relationship or connection or some sort of energy with the person, I feel like it probably wouldn't be good. Like I need to have the connection or some sort of like emotional connection to the person. I got to feel something in order for me to, one, feel safe or feel vulnerable or feel uninhibited in some sort of way. So any of those things, like if I didn't have that, that would be considered bad sex. Also, I feel men who tend to be more concerned about their own pleasure is something that I would definitely consider bad sex. Like I have experienced that, unfortunately. So that's not good. Where it's like, really?
No.
That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I that's what I would consider bad sex. What about you?
I can agree with that. I would definitely put selfishness as my top three for sure. I definitely need a connection. I don't need, not that I'm saying this to say I don't need to be like out there in a casual sex kind of manner, but if I have established a relationship with somebody and I don't need to be like in a relationship committed with them, but we know each other well, we understand what this is, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But we care about pleasing each other. I'm good with that. That's not what I have now, but I have been good with that. So I don't necessarily need the connection, but the person has to understand my body, has to care about my needs. So that selfishness is awful. And we both had conversations about that, me and Toni.
Yes, we have. Yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Is selfish, like what about the selfishness is bad for you? And I'm saying this because I've had a situation where somebody was really selfish and it turned me on. Like she was very upfront and honest about it. Like, yo, tonight I'm only gonna let you go down on me. And I was like, but I really want to, I was about to say, but I really want to do more. But in my mind, I was like, yo, how she came with the selfishness, I was all for it.
I feel like that's like a separate type of selfishness. So, right, like one that you're in like a established something you got going on where maybe she's, exercising her dominance in this situation. Is it? I mean, that's what that sounds like to me. And I'm definitely not talking about that because I could see that being somewhat of a turn on.
Okay.
So not talking about anything like that. And I don't know, Stacy, you can chime in, but I think that what I'm saying is I've had situations where I have spoken to men about the importance of sex, how it's important to me. And then my needs still not be met after I've had a conversation.
I got you.
Got it. Yeah.
So, or the man, surely a woman should communicate her needs, but a man not really even caring to ask or just like sex is over once I had my orgasm. I came, we're done. No, we're not. We're not. Like there's no real forethought into pleasing me.
Yeah. 2 mintes or 3 hours. You either get it in that time or you don't get it at all. That's on you. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Well, they say 18 minutes is the average time.
What for people? The average time for what?
The average time for people to have sex.
Oh, wow. I heard 10 minutes. Okay, that's cool.
18 minutes is what I heard.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Get them times up. Up and moving. 18 minutes.
It's about 30 to 45 minutes left on the clock that we need to fill. 18 minutes. 18 minutes.
18 minutes. 18 minutes.
No,
you can do it twice, though.
You could do a lot in 18 minutes.
Yeah, that's if the guy doesn't fall asleep.
Hey. Hey.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Listen, if you put it on them, that should be a feather in your cap. That's a feather in your cap.
I mean, only if I'm satisfied. Otherwise, they fall asleep.
Touche. And you're sitting there like, oh, someone's about to get kicked out. Real quick, out of here. Yeah, you want to be sleeping in this Uber.
Cold tonight.
This might be a good time to kind of talk about the pleasure gap.
Mm-hmm.
Always a great time to talk about that.
Yeah. So you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with the pleasure gap. And just, for the audience, I'll just, briefly talk about it. But the pleasure gap is basically the disparity of orgasms between heterosexuals, male and female. And basically, the statistics are somewhat alarming. I think the statistic is for every 3 orgasms that a man has, a woman has 1. And Stacy and I really want to, talk to you about the pleasure gap and how, as men and women, we can kind of close the gap. Another very interesting statistic that I did come across in preparation for this podcast was that anytime there's a woman and or lesbian woman and woman sex intercourse, or the numbers, the orgasm shoot up. And I think there's something to be said about the fact that when you have heterosexuals, women tend to orgasm less, but when you have female on female, the orgasms rise up. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, or what are your thoughts on those statistics?
Mr. Maxwell?
Well, when it comes to the WSW, women having sex with women, I can't comment on that. I definitely need to look more into it. I thank you for sharing that statistic because I did not know that. But when it comes to, the pleasure gap, Jamie and I have done a couple of episodes about this. And I believe the challenge with it goes back into a couple of things. One, the way in which we have a culture about bodies. So we're uncomfortable talking about bodies in general and sex. And then women are more vulnerable to that as we see what's going on in our current social political environment the last 2 years with Roe versus Wade, in addition to other social political issues with reproductive rights, women feeling and believing and arguing, right? They don't have a seat at the table in some of these decisions and some of these policies. And that just deals with a larger cultural content that we're dealing with, where anytime you talk about women's bodies, it's dealt with either in hyper-political ways, hyper-religious ways, but not according to what that individual is saying, how they're interpreting and moving in their own body. That's going to create a culture where our default is going to be, well, I don't really know anything about how it works down there or how you work, but I do watch this thing called porn. And if that's going to be true, then I know what's going to happen tonight is going to be fantastic. And obviously we know it's not. It's far from it, as you just mentioned, Toni, right? It becomes a thing of selfishness and playing out these games that you see on television or on your phone that don't translate well into real life. So I think culture is one issue. I think the other issue, and we've hammered on it already and talked about it, is communication. Simply asking somebody what they need and what they like and experimenting with them to get to the point where they feel that they are experiencing pleasure on their own terms. That is a very critical element. I'm going to say it again, that a woman is experiencing pleasure on her own terms. That has to be interpreted because we are constantly being exposed and bombarded with images that at times women aren't experiencing pleasure on their own terms. So if you watch porn, one of the major arguments is that it's very male-centric, right? There isn't a lot of porn that is woman-centric. And typically when we deal with woman-centric, we're talking about on average, right? In generalities, the bell curve, those in the middle of the bell curve. And that obviously becomes problematic because you lose sight of allowing an individual to be themselves. You want to create a space where someone can say, I feel comfortable being myself. I feel comfortable taking risks. I feel comfortable communicating my needs. And so that becomes a second thing. And those two, I think, contribute pretty much a lot to the pleasure gap from my perspective. Jay, what do you think?
About the statistic, I think it makes perfect sense that lesbian couples are experiencing more pleasure. I think one of the things that I hear about from women, mostly in heterosexual relationships, is that there's not a lot of passion, which is why a lot of the women I know who are heterosexual, they watch girl on girl porn because they like to see the passion. You know what I mean? Like they like to see the extended kissing and touching and all of that stuff, the foreplay and things like that, which I think in a heterosexual relationship, that's where you would get your pleasure from. But, you know, I guess according to the gap, the statistics with the gap, a lot of women are not experiencing that passion, that the foreplay, you know what I mean? The extended kissing and holding and touching and all of those different things that bring pleasure for women. So I think, like, obviously the communication piece needs to be there. I think the other thing is that both men and women need to learn how to vocalize their needs. I think, like, obviously that has, at the individual level, at the personal level, that has its own idiosyncrasies, but even at the community level, like you have women who are from the Black community, women who are from a different racial or ethnic community, from a different culture or whatever, like that's going to take on a different face, how they vocalize it, but they have to learn what it is that they really want, both men and women, and how to show up with that authentically, and present that to their partner. I think part of this conversation is skewed because I think it's more of an orgasm gap than a pleasure gap. A lot of the men I know have expressed just because they came doesn't mean that they enjoyed the experience. So it's not so much that there's a pleasure gap as much as it is an orgasm gap. So this is why I'm saying I think both men and women need to learn how to vocalize, be aware of what you really need and who you are as a person, and learn how to vocalize that when you show up with your partner. I'll give you an example. Like I said, I do not like sloppy head. And there was a time when I felt like if I expressed that to a partner or somebody I was dealing with, they would look at me as less manly because that's the programming that most women get. When you get the dick in your hand, the first thing you're supposed to do is get it as wet as you can. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to spit on it. You're supposed to be nasty and sloppy and all of that. So for a long time, I didn't feel comfortable expressing that because it just seemed like that was the MO that most of the partners I had been with, they come out the gate with that. I finally was able to reconcile that within myself. And then the next person I talked to about it, she was like, yo, no one's ever told me that before. I'm glad that you said something because now it's making me more considerate to how you like this, not just how men in general like it, but how you like it. And if you can learn how to customize certain things for your partner, I mean, obviously it's things that they've had before, experiences that they've had, but if you can learn how to customize it, I think that's what can bring even more pleasure. So even as a woman, if you feel like, yo, I don't even feel comfortable telling this person that I like X, Y, and Z because most men don't blah, blah, blah. Well, yes, he's a man, but that man particularly might have a specific interest in what you like. So I think we have to learn how to be very aware of what we want and how to vocalize it in ways that our partners are going to be able to receive it, and it won't offend them.
I like that you mentioned that it's more of an orgasm gap than a pleasure gap. One, because I think women do get pleasure from situations or sex, even if they don't have an orgasm. We clearly want to, right, Tom? We want to, but there is some pleasure involved, even if we don't. So I think we have learned, some of us who don't have orgasms regularly have learned how to get some pleasure out of sex otherwise. But in terms of it being an orgasm gap, I looked at a study online, and it mentioned how the issue is the female anatomy, and that's a male and a female gender problem, that we don't understand the female anatomy. We don't know where the clitoris is or the vulva or all the wonderful, fantastic parts that make up the female anatomy. We don't exactly. It's so good.
All
right?
The wonderful parts.
Yes, we don't understand it. And I can honestly say it took learning my own body. It took masturbating, which, some studies are saying now we shouldn't do too much of that. But it really did take understanding my own body to be able to understand what brings me pleasure. And I can't communicate that if I don't even know. Yeah. And I'm letting him figure it out on his own, or thinking he knows when he doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Figuring it out can be fun, but it's always great to have a map. And obviously, the map. You're the key. You got the legend. You can let them know where to be at what time and all of that. So,
I was telling Stacy, I had an experience where I was telling somebody, a man, how I felt about sex, or what I liked and didn't like, and we were having a conversation about it. And at the end of the conversation, his attitude was sort of like, how dare you pretty much be so bold and make your own pleasure so important, and I remember telling Stacy, thinking like, and I remember Stacy said, yeah, like, how dare you do that? And that happened on more than one occasion. And so in some ways, it makes me a little reluctant to speak about my sexual entitlement, because in the two instances, it was not received very well. And I think it has something to do with the fact that men have this expectation that women are not supposed to take ownership of their sexual pleasure, maybe in the way that I did, or the way that I was speaking. So maybe they're not used to it. I don't know. It didn't go over too well.
We're seeing that in even music. I think we were talking about some of the rappers out here that are doing so-called pussy rap. Yeah. Everybody's not comfortable with that.
Right, yeah. You're right.
They're being vocal, and they're saying, this is what I want. You do something for me. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's not just me servicing you. You're servicing me.
Yeah, well, as I was saying earlier, we don't have a culture that values these conversations, values bodies. And like I said, women are more vulnerable to that. And what happens is, as you mentioned, Stacey, right? You don't know what a vulva is. You don't know what a clitoris is. You don't know anything about the physiology, the biology of a woman. Health education, I think in some places has been gutted. So you're not even giving that basic anatomical introduction. But even taking it a step further to what you're talking about, ownership, and I mentioned the whole term of pleasure on her own terms, because it's your human right to have pleasure. It's your human right to enjoy sex. It's your human right to have an orgasm, or to do whatever you want to do with sex. It is literally a human right. And we miss that because so much of how we've, I believe, dialogued about bodies, but especially about women's bodies in this context, is about subjugation. When we talk about bodies in the American context, a lot of it deals with subjugation, going back to historical incidents of slavery here, American chattel slavery, going into penury, sharecropping. A lot of it has to do with subjugating the body and utilizing and leveraging someone's labor. So I think some people, some men, and to be specific here, and with the context you gave, Toni, are probably not used to these kinds of conversations, because a lot of conversations about women are about subjugation, just like some of the conversations we have in general about bodies or subjugation. But I want to keep it specific to women now, because I think this needs to be hammered home. And when a woman asserts herself in that regard, in a sensible manner, right? I'm talking to you in private. I don't have a megaphone. I'm not at your grandmama's funeral, blasting about what my sexual needs are. I'm not in the middle of the Kroger or the Publix telling you, in front of a bunch of people, embarrassing you about what my needs are and how inadequate you are. I'm talking to you in private and I'm letting you know as my partner, as my confidant, as my lover, what I need. And then you turn around and say, how dare you? And I would not be shocked if other women say that's happened to them, because we're not acculturated to that. We're not accustomed to that level of, I wouldn't even say call it boldness, just assertion of your human right. It's a sad state of affairs because it does tie into other social political things, but keeping it here, it's just, unfortunate and even tragic, but not surprising.
Agreed.
And they could have been some insecurity in that too. Maybe they felt like this is a tall task. This is not even something that I feel like I can do. You're telling me, and I appreciate it, but man, I don't even know if I have the wherewithal to please you the way that you want. Now, obviously, they're not going to say it like that. They're going to put it back on you and say, how dare you? But they could have been insecure.
And, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I wonder, like, having these conversations. So my question is, first of all, when do you have these conversations? And then once you do, does it put some added pressure on the whole act of being intimate with your partner? Like, once you've kind of laid down, I like this, I like that, I don't like this. Although it's like a necessary thing, I just wonder, like you said, does it make somebody feel like they are not going to be able to meet the needs of the other person? Or
it definitely can, depending on how the conversation is broached. I don't know if this is something that, if you say this is a scenario where you and your guy are just in the bed, kind of playing around, fooling around, and you want it to go there by the end of the night, but y'all are just there talking, and you say, hey, last time we got down, I didn't like when you did this, or I loved when you did this. This made me feel good. It can come out like that. Or I think if you haven't gone there already, you're seeing somebody new, I think the minute you know that you want it to go there, I think you should, I personally feel like you should tell them like, hey, I like you enough that I feel like we can be intimate physically. Here's kind of what I like or what I need if we're going to go there. These are the kind of things that I like to do, the kind of environment. I like a little lingerie. I like the foreplay, blah, blah, blah. So I personally feel like if you haven't, as soon as you know you want to, you should have the conversation with them about wanting to. Now, in the conversation about wanting to, if it gets to the mechanics, I like this, I like that, can we do this, can we do that? That's great. But I feel like first just expressing the desire and finding out where they are can really help, kind of inform what the next conversations need to be, if it needs to go to the mechanics or not.
Question: since from when you were young, you first thought you would not have sex until you got married, and you didn't, but that's fine. Knowing what you know today, would you tell someone to wait who was younger?
Not as a blanket.
What would you tell them?
Not as a blanket state. No, not as a blanket to everyone. No. I mean, I have met a lot, like we used to work with a youth ministry, and there were certain kids who exhibited some maturity way beyond their years. I wouldn't necessarily tell them that they need to wait unless they came to me and they were having questions about it. If I feel like somebody has questions about it, then that to me says they're not completely comfortable yet. So I would tell them to wait. But there are some kids that I've met who I'm just like, yeah, I mean, they're going to have sex probably at a young age, and they'll probably go through the motions of figuring out either this was the wrong person or this was the wrong time, but it's not going to have the kind of, I guess, catastrophic impact that it could have for some of the other kids that I've seen who are very immature and who started having sex too fast. So it's not a blanket. I wouldn't just tell everybody blanketed as a young person, you should wait.
I still wrestle with this question. This is something Jay and I actually had a private conversation about 3 months ago. I wrestle with it because a lot of the elders in the Black community were very much against, obviously, premarital sex. And as I'm getting older, I'm seeing why. I think there's a lot of immaturity. And a lot of challenges people have with trying to create healthy relationships, not just with other people, but with themselves, with their active sexual self, right? They become very guilt-ridden. They attack themselves and even sometimes lead to self-abuse verbally. I'm not talking about self-abuse as far as action, just verbally and just denigrating themselves. And I would never want anyone to be in a situation of denigrating themselves or their body. So I've been wrestling with this because on the other hand, I do recognize there's a bunch of people who come to sex through different avenues. And I always want people to have pathways to feel reassured, loved, and to be in a position to love others. And this is where it gets complicated because one size does not fit all, like Jamie says. And when you throw down these edicts or you throw down these laws, a lot of times you miss the opportunities where people are going to encounter sex and have sex on their own terms. And you're so busy hitting them with the law, you're not loving them or giving them an opportunity to love themselves and love others, to find ways to rediscover themselves and to flourish. And so I've kind of been straddling the fence with this. You know, I really promote connected sex. And I know that may look different for various different types of people. It may not be in a marital context for some people, but really the importance of connected sex. And we said in the beginning of the episode, ethics. How are you treating that person? How are you treating yourself? Are you experiencing that person as a human being? You've heard me use the term like rights and, you know, pleasure on your own terms. As you can see, I'm very adamant about people being able to assert their humanity and being respected on the grounds that they want to be respected on, especially in an intimate situation, because it's such a precious opportunity and a sacred time together. And you can't just look at that as, well, I'm just going to get off or you're going to get off. And, you know, this is just a credit card swipe to me or you know, putting my debit card into some kind of online cart and I get what I want at the end of the day. When we start looking at each other in these kind of mechanistic terms, we start to devalue and demean ourselves and others. So when people are approaching more towards connected sex, that's more of where I lean.
Heath, I have a question regarding like the attitude that it seems like men have about women and their number of sexual partners. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely like a double standard, right? So it's like men want, and this isn't even like, this is stuff that I've personally experienced. I mean, I do see it like on social media as well, but men definitely, not all, have this idea that, you know, they've had lots of, usually a situation where they've had lots of sexual partners. And then they prefer that the woman have very little. I feel like even, you know, in my 50s, when people show up with lots of, with experience, because you're 50, but,
of course.
You know, it's like, are those expectations unrealistic and even unfair to some degree?
I think a lot of the expectations we bring in our modern society to sex are unfair and unrealistic and moored in a lot of pseudo-religious rhetoric, control rhetoric, and going back to the narrative I mentioned about subjugation. When it comes to partners, I have a fair kind of idea about it, which is you find the partners that you want to mate with and they find the partners they want to mate with. Do I think that numbers should count in all instances? I think if you're a man and you meet someone that you really care about and you feel comfortable with her and she feels comfortable with you, and the only thing getting in the way of this wonderful relationship is a number, you have to ask yourself a question that I mentioned in our podcast. What do you gain by losing everything that you gained? If you break up with this person and say, oh, your number's too high, and that was the only thing getting in your way, she doesn't know any of your friends. She hasn't slept with any of your friends. She hasn't slept with anybody in your community. You've met her on your own. You guys are great with budgeting, great with finances, great with travel, great with goals, great with spirituality, great with sex. And then you find out her number and then you let that be the reason you break up with her. I'm just asking the question, what do you gain by losing everything that you've gained? That's something you have to ask yourself. You know, for me, that doesn't make sense. For some other people, it does. But, you know, if we translate it into other analogies, if you just had, won the lotto and got $800 billion, and they said, well, we're going to tax that. And you're like, well, I don't want the money if you're going to tax it. Goodbye. Okay, well, then we would say, well, that's kind of silly. Taxes are a part of what we do here. You know that was the case. That either you take it on an annual basis, annualized, or you take the taxes up front. Well, I don't want to just give it to someone else because that's just not going to work for me. We would say, yeah, there's a problem here.
Cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, I'm all about people connecting and finding the right partner, and no partner is perfect. No partner is going to check all your boxes. And if someone's checking the majority of your boxes and there's only 2 unchecked that are not big ticket items, and you say that's it, then I have to ask, what will be it for you?
I've never been asked that question, ever.
About your body count?
Oh, yeah, ever.
So I wasn't asked about a body count, but I remember having a conversation with a man and just hearing about all his sexual partners, and then saying something. He mentioned to me, "Well, I'm glad that you've been married for 20 some years," and I'm like, "Why is that?" And he said, "That just means you haven't been with a plethora of people during the time that you were married." And I was kind of like, the audacity for you to tell me, for me to listen to all of your sexual encounters that you told me about, and then in the same breath, want something different from me. Like I guess to me, I just feel like, there's a double standard here, and
absolutely,
and I don't. I feel like it's just unfair for men to feel like they could go and be out there with this one and that one. And then, if a woman that they're interested in is their equal, they have a problem with it.
Yeah. And that's why I just say, find somebody who you can match with. Find somebody who's going to, be equal with you in the way you view sex and, your bodies. The biggest challenge I only have with body count numbers that I would ask anybody is just about safety, sexual health. Have you been tested? Do you practice safe sex?
Right.
That has impact on me. If I have a family, if I have children, and I contract something, that's gonna have downstream impacts in my life. So I need to know, you can have all the partners you want to have. Have you been practicing safe sex, or are you willing to get tested? Are you willing to go to a doctor and produce paperwork, as I should be willing to produce paperwork, to make sure that we both are respecting and keeping each other safe in these acts, or this act that we're about to engage in?
So curious. Sex toys. Are you a fan? Not a fan? For yourself?
When you say for yourself, do you mean like used on me, or
used in with a partner? With a partner.
Oh yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can definitely enhance an experience. Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like a lot of women, like you talked about earlier with the masturbation, a lot of women learn their body through masturbation and with toys. So if you have a partner who's bringing their quiet time to your together time, and you can see how y'all are putting it together with the stuff that she does by herself, and with, like, again, we're talking about climbing mountains here.
There's some men out there who are mad at the rose. I see that in comments.
Yes. I've seen,
like, y'all need to put the rose down.
And you would say to that, well, like, yo, it's doing something that I've tried to ask you to do multiple times, but you don't want to do. So, like, what's the issue here?
Yeah. You do whatever you need to do or want to do together with your partner. I have no qualms about sex toys. No qualms whatsoever.
I think that experimentation is important. It keeps things spicy, especially if you've been with somebody for a long time, you're in a long-term committed relationship. That desire can wane. It's like it ebbs and flows, right? So I definitely think it's important.
So in terms of like the amount of sex, what do you think that most men would deem acceptable, or what would they like in terms of if you had to speak for the collective?
I think it depends. It goes back to knowing your partner and having conversations with your partner. When people are around, people will say anything. Oh yeah, absolutely. Man, 8 times a day if I could. Then you
Twice
get with
on
that
Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Then you get with that brother, and he's really just a twice a month dude because he just wants to be up under you and cuddling you, but he don't want to say that in front of his boys because then he just looks like simp Master X. And he don't want to be simp Master X. So absolutely, I beat him all day, and then I tell him to bounce. But in private, it's a totally different story when he feels like his guard is down. He can be intimate and open with you. Intimate, not physically, but intimate as far as emotionally. I think that is many times as the person needs or wants to have. And as far as I'm concerned, quality over quantity. Personally, I think that time you spend with that person where it can be mutually enjoyable. And Jamie and I use this phrase about orgasms and participating in women's orgasms, and we say that because I'm not causing an orgasm. I'm not making an orgasm happening. This is your body. I'm participating with you in your orgasm journey. And Jay and I have both said this, that, when you've had the pleasure and the privilege of participating in a woman's orgasm journey and she's going through multiple orgasms, that is a high and a feeling that is hard to replicate. It is a joyous, I can't even put it into words. I'm really struggling to put it into words. Joyous, momentous, spiritual feeling when you've been able to participate with your partner and be a part of their multi-orgasmic journey. I think it's one of the greatest pleasures on this planet. And so I'd rather have quality over quantity. If you're talking about, hey, Heath, would you just be satisfied, this kind of would you rather game? Would you rather meet a different woman every night and take her home from the club, or have 2 or 3 women that you've made love to and each experience was unique and pleasurable and multi-orgasmic for that woman? I'm going to take the latter.
I love that.
I'm going to take the latter. Jay? I'm sure Jay would take the latter too. Knowing him a little bit. Well, I'll let him speak for himself.
It depends on what day you ask.
I like that answer too.
It depends on what day you ask. But I would say the same thing. I mean, it also depends on the partner you're with, because there have been partners that I've been with where it's like 5-6 times a day. And then there have been partners that I've been with and it's been like 5 or 6 times a month. And I've been satisfied with that because, as Heath was talking about, there were, the time that we weren't intimate was filled with other things. You know what I mean? Whether it was conversation or us going out, learning about each other, adventures, weekend getaways, whatever it was, like the time and the space was filled with other substantial things that kept our relationship together. So I think it depends on, I think most men will tell you it depends on like what partner that they're with, like circumstances that really impacted that. I think every person would want to experience an orgasm every day. Like it's like, you wake up, you have breakfast, you start work, you go through your day. There's a point in your day, I think in everyone's day, where an orgasm would bring them down. They can reset and get back into the day. I think everyone ideally would like that, but it's not always practical.
I wonder if, though, you have better sex less often because your body, I don't know, is rested, if that makes any sense, from each instance of sex.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that to be true, but I would think.
Yeah.
There's got to be some truth to it.
Yeah. Better sex.
Yeah. If that's what works for your body.
After you rest and you get some time to rest. So I think it makes sense that you would be a better sexual partner, and especially expending the energy if you had some rest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So some people say the rest is too long. So, well, about 2 or 3 weeks now, and then, we can come back to it. What I need you to do is take care of the gutters. That garbage, take it out. Well, this rest part is getting a little too long and too annoying. Too much work.
I was looking at another podcast on sex, and one thing that was mentioned was that we're often distracted during sex. Like we're thinking about other things instead of being fully present with our partners. And I speak from the women's perspective, that could contribute to her not having an orgasm also.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could
He's
be
thinking about the dishes in the sink.
Yeah. Look, that them gutters you didn't clean and that garbage you didn't take out. That was supposed to be your rest time, brother.
Right. Toni, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, or, or if it's not hitting, you are thinking about something else.
That too. That too.
Facts.
You could be like, I could be doing something else right now.
Right.
This is a waste of my time.
Right.
Yeah.
Why am I here?
Why did I go see an off-Broadway show of The Wiz?
I need to be washing clothes.
I would personally say I've gotten over that. I think there are times in the past before when I either had to hit up the highlight reel thinking about other people or something like that. But I think I've kind of curated the personal sex culture with myself now that I'm like, if I'm going to be with anybody, it's somebody that can hold my attention. It's somebody that I don't want to give partial attention to. Like, I want to be fully present. So like, I would say for the last however many years that I've been active, that hasn't been something I've had to like struggle with. But I've definitely been distracted before in the past.
I've been distracted with performance. Performance pressures, performance goals, performance to-do lists. And so there isn't a flow. It's more of like achievement, right? It's like taking an exam to get in a specialized high school or specialized program. You're just thinking through what needs to happen because you're looking for that congratulations letter. You open it up with the mail opener, like, congratulations, I had 8 orgasms. Welcome to the club. You're looking for that, letter. You don't want to get that letter and say, thank you. After careful review of your records and your performance, I'd rather go do laundry. Good luck in all your future endeavors.
Well, now I gotta amend what I said because I have been distracted with performance.
Yeah, performance. Yeah, will distract you, especially for a lot of men. I think they want to knock it out of the park. Sometimes they're thinking, and they're getting into like the weeds. Sometimes, has she moaned like this before for someone else? Is this real? You're getting too much in here, and it's distracting you from what you should be doing, which is paying attention to the needs of the moment.
Mm-hmm. What about like the distraction of the performance, having you not being able to perform?
You mean get erect or just actually?
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Because you're wondering what they think about you. If it says something to them about your manhood in their eyes, like that could be like, I mean, this is obviously not a fair comparison, but I look at it as how I've heard women express who cannot have children. Mm-hmm. Like, they feel like either their partner, their community, people look at them as less of a woman because they can't bear children. Mm-hmm. So think about that mindset for a guy who feels like, this is what I'm supposed to be here for. I'm supposed to be able to provide pleasure through this strong erection that I have, and I can't and I don't have it. It can really cause you to, like I said, think about this other person seeing a decrease in your manhood, or even you in yourself.
Yeah. So Jamie, what should a woman do in that instance?
Talk. How are you feeling? Like I see what's going on. First of all, just letting you know it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to have sex right now. I'm really horny and I really want to, but we don't have to do that right now. I mean, I think anytime someone is having a mini crisis or a meltdown, you want to lead with understanding. That should always be your first go-to is understanding, asking questions. How do you feel? Do you want to just take a breather? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you want to start over? We could just start with some foreplay, just talking, whatever it is. Before we move to action, I think asking questions and leading with understanding is probably the most important.
Yeah.
Or bring out those toys. I'm just saying.
Well, see, but
that person is there. That person may not.
Because then they're going to say, well, okay, you discarded me and how I'm feeling and what I'm going through, and you're just going for your pleasure now. It's not even about us reconciling what's going on, because that person, it can happen just like that, where they've thought of something and they lose their erection and it's hard for them to get it back. It could be something crazy, like they thought about the time that they had to feed their grandmother when she was sick. It could just come to mind, and like they're totally out of it now, and they don't have the erection that they had, right? And if you just go and say, well, all right, cool, I'm gonna just get my toy, to them it looks like that could be looked at as transactional. Well, you only had me here to bring you pleasure, and now that I'm not useful.
What if you use the toys together, though? That's what I was referring to. What if you
Yeah. I mean, if you
created a
guys are
situation like that?
Yeah, I think if you guys are just being collaborative in the moment, that person maybe this has happened before and they're kind of used to it. They're getting it investigated. I'm going to see my urologist in 2 weeks. We won't be having this issue. It could be a bunch of things. This is the pros or the benefits of sometimes being with a committed partner, because if it's a reoccurring issue, you've maybe developed a strategy in order to handle it till they get to a better solution. I just think, like Jay said, I just want to double down. I think understanding. I think when someone's in a crisis, you really want to show, hey, it's okay. Someone spilled some milk. Sometimes grow up in a black household, you spill some milk and it's going to be a problem. That glass shatters
some furniture. So.
You hear the clinking of the belt, like, uh-oh. There's going to be some problems in a second in this kitchen. And then I'm going to have to clean it up. So you want to know that when something happens, they don't hear the clinking of the belt. They want to know, like, hey, you okay? What do you need? No. Come on. Let me help you clean this up. What do you need in this moment? Or sometimes being silent, just sitting with it until they're ready to talk. That, I think, is all about, again, active listening and how it can be deployed in real time. And then getting to what you said, Stacy, well, we've been through this before. Do you feel comfortable going to our next level solution, which is the toys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
And those are the times where it's beneficial to be in a committed relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
That way. Because when it's casual, you could throw away somebody real quick.
Oh, yeah. I just met you at Club 559 in 2001. 112 just got off stage and we back at your crib, and that happened. It's like, yo, brother, listen, I got a cab company. I'm gonna call you. You're going to have to get up out of here.
But I will
I can just do some push-ups.
I will say, though, from an experiential standpoint, I actually have had that happen. And I was actually really surprised. Like, I thought they were just going to put their clothes on and jet, but they were like, yo, do you want to talk about it? And we proceeded to talk about it. And in the course of the conversation, I got up again and we handled business. So, but it's, it all came from the understanding. Like we talked about earlier, creating this environment of safety. Sure. I felt seen because this person did not, as Heath talked about, there was no punitive or like reaction or punishment to me having this issue. I wasn't made to feel wrong. I wasn't made to feel like I ruined the night. Like, she was just like, do you want to talk about it? And like I said, from the talking, that's what kind of made me feel safe. And like I said, because it was a casual situation, it was somebody I wasn't really connected to. Like, we had probably talked maybe for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And the chemistry was just right. And we were out one night, like, yeah, we're going back to your place. We did that. And that happened. And like I said, I was surprised that they were very understanding, but from the understanding, we were able to course correct.
Get back on track.
Get back in the pocket.
Exactly. Said, all systems go. Engage.
Facts. Full steam ahead.
Boldly going where no man has gone before. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Do you think we are moving away from this hookup culture, casual sex period that we were in pretty strong, it feels like, for a while? No. I'm just thinking of, these gender wars that we've been referencing, and how, women are like, forget men, and men are like, whatever.
Yeah, everyone's just like, eh.
Everybody's nonchalant.
Right.
Nonchalant.
We're unbothered now, whatever. Yeah. I'm going out with my girls.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? No? You're saying no. No.
Because at the end of the day, everybody still loves sex. Everybody who's had it, most of the people who've had it, they still love it. They still love the pleasure, the orgasm, all of accoutrement that comes with it. Like, I think it'd be very hard to get away from sex. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that, Heath and I have talked about is people love the dirty sex. The dirty sex that you get to have in hookup culture.
Yeah, transgressive. Yeah.
The transgressive sex. Yeah, they love that. Yeah. So many people love that. It's hard to get away from.
Yeah. That's the parental.
And I think the more you have that pussy rap, the more you have, music, movies, any kind of media that's promoting that, it's going to be hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think we're getting away from it, but I do think we're reaching a crisis point with the gender wars. We're seeing now in America, in Japan, and other places where people aren't having enough children. I think that's a lot to do with economics as well. But, with Rebecca Tracer's book, All the Single Ladies, right? We're going into 2030 majority single nation, large population of single women. I think we're getting a point where people are going to want to have couples, and now that definition may change. Jay and I talk about this all the time. You may see more polyamorous couples. You may see more polygyny, one man, multiple women, or one woman, multiple men. I think people are going to find a way to create committed relationships on some level, whether out of economic need or a combination of emotional and spiritual connection. I just think we're going to get there, but casual sex will be here. I think it's always been here. I think it's just gotten bigger and more public, especially in American culture, American history, the last, let's say 20, 25 years. And that's probably due to a lot of factors that we don't have enough time. That's a whole different other podcast episode. But yeah, but I do think we're going to get to a point where people want to couple and bond and be together. Just don't know what that may look like for certain people. Yeah.
What do you think that women misunderstand about men and sex? Is there one thing or two things?
Jay may have three or four things, 5 things. It's like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. 6 things, 7 things.
I'm thinking. I mean, honestly, the biggest thing for me is, like I talked about earlier, that one size fits all approach. Even the concept that, like, all men enjoy sex the same way. Mm-hmm. Like, there are some, like, I got an uncle who's been married now for 20 plus years. You can't tell him he's not having the best sex of his life because he loves his wife. Like, so I mean, I think a lot of times women will look at men and they'll say, well, most married men don't even enjoy sex anymore because it's become plain and boring and vanilla and they're doing the same things. But again, you can't tell him he's not having the best sex of his life. Where they might assume that somebody who's single like me is having the best sex of my life. And I'm like, no, it's not always great, So I think that's one thing I would say when they misunderstand about men and sex is that it's always enjoyable for us. And we're simple in that all you have to do is get it wet and get it hard. And that's the long and short of it for us.
I think that's good. And I think you're accurate. I think women do think it's that, I do think that we do think that about men a lot of times. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every sexual encounter as a single man is a James Bond adventure. The pussy galores and the Holly Goodheads and no. I think when it comes to your question, one thing, there are still men out there who want to be with women and are committed and they want to take care of women. They want to provide, they want to do. I think a lot of men, because of the current state of our social, political, economic climate, feel hampered in being able to do that. And that pertains to sex, because I think a lot of men want to provide even in the sex realm. They may have some misguided ideas about what that is. They may be misinformed. They may have relied on media and literature that is not relevant to the person that they're with or the partner, but they still want to do right by this woman and they want to bond with her. Some men may cover it. Some men may be more open with it, but I think there's a lot of men who are out there who still want that. And I think the second thing is that men can be just as insecure about sex as sometimes the stereotypes about women insecurities about sex. They're thinking and they may be covering it up again, or they may be more communicative about it. But this is why we stress, how do you have a human approach, human being, treating somebody as they should be treated, with respect, honor, care. Some of us, we treat our material things with more honor and care than we do the people in our lives and the people who shared their bodies with us.
That's a gem. Would you say, because Toni and I are both raising boys, well, Toni's are older, but we're raising boys, is that a message we need to be sharing with, well, kids, period, but younger men?
Yeah, I wouldn't want my nephews or son or my son or anyone to go out of their way and just have these sexual encounters that, typical, like, he came and then it's like, yo, you need to get the hell up out the crib. I don't know what you're still doing here. And all that stuff that we've seen and, Booty Call and all these movies we've all laughed at over the last 20, 25 years. And, 6 a.m. I'm digging her out, 6:15, I'm kicking her out. Like, I don't want him to have that sexual ethic. I want him to understand that this is a hollow time. As I mentioned, when you're before you walk through the corridors of someone's heart, take your shoes off. And this is a sacred time for you and that other person. And the only way you're going to get respect is by giving it. You got to first lead with that and how you create that intimacy going forward. And this is why I stress you just shouldn't be doing it with everybody, because everybody has not passed muster or passed the test for being included in your heart. And I would say that to any woman in my life. Not everyone has passed the muster to be included in your heart. You will find somebody. It just may take time. Jay and I were having this conversation today. Selecting a partner is really about their character and their heart. And when you're really honest and you take sex out of it, I was just telling him today, when I take sex out of the picture, when I take pussy out of the picture, there's a lot of women I wouldn't be spending time with because their character is just horrible. Or the character just doesn't align with me. They're great people. It's just not in alignment. And then you start to realize how many few opportunities you have to meet a great person and bond with them. Mm-hmm. And when you start looking at heart, you start to realize, I got to take these opportunities very carefully and treasure them and really build upon them, because I don't know when I'm going to have another opportunity to find someone with a similar heart. You got to be very intentional. So that's what I would tell any young man.
Absolutely.
What I heard you say is that sex clouds your mind, right? Like when you're picking a partner, because if you take sex out of it and it leaves you with, less possible partners, based on just character, mm-hmm. right? Flipping it the other way around, putting sex in it makes you really just get involved with people that you wouldn't ordinarily. That's what I heard you say. Am I right?
Let me say this, and Jay can jump in here because I've had this philosophy. It's not about sex, it's about pussy. There's two different things in the male world.
Oh, okay. Please explain what this is.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So
you want to grab your sons real quick?
You just sit here and sit down. He's talking about Jesus. You need to hear this.
You need to sit at the master's feet, right?
Yeah. So sex is about the intimate act between a man and a woman. And that's right. We know that anatomically. That's what the description of coitus, the scientific term. Pussy is about a game that men play. A game that I even to this day get lured and tempted into playing. It's about the status and level that you have as a man among other men. And pussy is just it's a different game. It's actually a game. It's not even sex is not a game. It's literally a game. And it's like if I was playing Call of Duty. I don't know if you guys know any of these games your sons may play. Call of Duty or, The Witcher or any of these other games that people play. It's literally a game you play. And like there's some people who are level, 5 in the world for Call of Duty. That doesn't mean anything in the real world. But to that man, I'm number 5. And you tell the guys, oh, you're number 5 in Call of Duty. It's like 1 million guys online who play that. And you're number 5. That's crazy, right? It's the same thing with pussy. Right? How many girls have you slept with? Who have you done? What have you done with them? And you tell it, and it's in this game, right? It's in this little box, and other guys are like, oh, great. Or you feel you can hold it over other guys, or you feel it makes you feel good. Because pussy is one of the greatest ways that you can seduce yourself into significance.
Like you said, it doesn't mean anything in the real world.
Leaning in.
I know.
Like you said, it doesn't mean anything in the real world, but in this little box.
Yeah, it means everything.
Yeah.
I'm still seduced into playing it sometimes. I'm not saying I play it, but it has that so much of a stronghold in my life as a man because it's just an amazing thing. And some men play it where they're super selfish, as Toni said, and some men play it where they love bomb. They give a woman multiple orgasms, and then they hang out, and then they say, this is not going to work for me, and they bounce. Then different men play it the same way, but it's all about pussy. And that is a different type of game than sex.
So I don't know if you just answered my
game,
question, but I was just going to ask, like, as a woman, how do you know, like, what game you're being played in? Like, how do you know if somebody's, with you because they want sex or they want pussy? Like, how would you know?
I will say this. Chemistry and compatibility. A friend of mine was telling me about this in the Jay Shetty podcast several months ago. They were talking about chemistry and compatibility. One of the things that I tell our women friends, because Jay and I have mutual women friends and we have separate women friends, is this. Chemistry is about like the physical connection. Sometimes you meet somebody and the chemistry is just flowing, and the next thing you know, you're in the bedroom. Compatibility takes a lot, sometimes a little bit longer. Push the compatibility up front, push the chemistry back. Now I'm going to get into my Black Elder bag, at least Black Elder Christian bag, and I'm sure some of the Muslim and Buddhist brothers and sisters would say the same thing. This is why they used to say no sex before marriage, because you want to put gateways, right? You want to put roadblocks so that you can really deal with someone's intention, because someone who's all about pussy can wait you out. They can go 3 or 4 years and you can not have sex for 3 or 4 years, but someone is really going to have a hard time crossing the marriage threshold. Some will, and that's just risks, but you really reduce that number down when you're pushing it back and you're really making it about compatibility and connection. It just takes time, and it takes knowing yourself and your body and what you need emotionally and physically, but also what that person's about. And as long as you can do that and focus and figure out how to do that, it's going to be, I think, a lot easier. Not foolproof, not a guarantee. There are no promises. But, sex is one thing. Again, the pussy game is different. And unfortunately, there will be men in their 50s and 60s still playing the pussy game. It's addictive.
I just learned something new.
Look, can I jump in and say something with that? One of the things you can be aware of is how, like, what things a man will do that it corresponds to what he's telling you. So, like, I don't really want a relationship right now, right? But they're taking you on the most extravagant, expensive, like somebody who's trying to make an impression on you. That's the pussy game. When they're trying to make an impression on you, void of sealing the deal with you for something long term. If it's just I'm just trying to impress you with what I have, my means and things like that, that's probably the pussy game. I would say 8 times out of 10, that's probably the pussy game. Yeah. No foolproof 100% guarantees, but just giving you something to chew on and think about.
I feel enlightened right now. I just learned something I did not know.
Mm-hmm. yeah, pussy. I'm telling you that game is whew.
I didn't realize it was had such a hold on men, or that it was a game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, which is why women use it as a power tool as well. I mean, it could go both ways, honestly, as they know.
In the same way that guys use or leverage their finances.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're right. I didn't think about it like that. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we have spent, and this goes back to our early conversation about talking about bodies and healthy ways to talk about bodies. We have spent our entire lives starting from when they're children. Think about this, what we're doing to young girls. And we're doing things to young boys too, but right now I'm talking about young girls. Telling them that the most important thing they have is their vagina to protect it. Boom, boom, drip, 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 drip. All that's all they want is pussy. All they want is your butt. And then you get in a situation where you get to use it. Well, You told me it was the most important thing I had. So now I'm not thinking about how maybe somebody, how I have this intelligence, my brains. There's a lot of sometimes unwiring women may talk about doing because this is what we're doing to them. Just like sometimes we make little boys predators very early on, right? Oh, all you want is one thing and you're 5 years old. Telling 5-year-old girls, you know, all he wants is one thing. She's 5. She's 5.
Right. Yeah.
She's playing with dolls or doing whatever, getting into computer games, learning how to code. Maybe she likes rock climbing. I don't know, whatever. Playing softball. And this is what I said before about we don't have a culture of talking positively about bodies. Obviously, women are more vulnerable to that issue as well for a variety of reasons.
That is interesting and true. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. We are so beholden to how we're kind of wired. And we just pass it on generation to generation is what we're doing.
Yeah.
It needs to stop.
Yeah.
And we're going to stop it with our children, right?
Working on it.
Yeah.
I mean, and the same goes for sex. I mean, we're beholden to the same things that we learn, that we pass on.
We get comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn how to just, you know, play the game. We learned how to exist in these current systems. And no matter how bad or how limiting it is, we just say, oh, I'll just adapt them more. And as the boxes slowly I'll just move here. I'll find ways to make myself, you know, comfortable, even though you're not confronting the fact that the box is about to squash you. It's Indiana Jones, Temple of Dooms. The stakes are coming down on you.
You know, and I think that's why Stacy and I wanted to do, you know, have this podcast, because I think that for women, we have become adaptive, or we are not being expressive about our needs. And I think it's fine time that, you know, women start really being responsible for their own sexual pleasure, if you will, and, you know, being accountable for the part that they play into it. Because quite naturally, you know, going back to the orgasm gap, you know, we naturally want to go straight to men. But, you know, I think Stacy made a good point about making sure that women really speak up about what it is that they want and they desire and what their needs are. And hopefully we got that came across in this podcast, and we really made it a point to make sure that women are understanding that they need to take part in their own pleasure and make sure that they're being expressive about what their own needs to their partner or husband or boyfriend or whatever, their casual sex partner, whatever the situation is.
Whatever the situation
Situationship.
Situationship,
link, whoever it is.
all that.
Yeah.
Hook up. Whatever it is, you have a right to be treated like a human being.
Absolutely. I want to end with one question, and Toni and I answered this question for each other earlier before you guys came on. What song is on your Get the Draws cassette? It's a good night for you and your partner. The lights are dim. You got chocolate, strawberries, and whatever. What song is playing in the background?
Give me a little bit more to the scenario. What kind of sex are we trying to have?
It's whatever kind of sex you want to have.
Yeah.
Listen,
What music goes with it?
I'm gonna tell you, my man Tank will always set the mood for me.
Tank. That's right.
Tank always he always got a song. Fuck It Up, When We, like that whole Savage album for me is like I can play that on repeat. And we can go as long as the song front to back.
More than 18 minutes?
I was just getting ready to say that.
More than 18 minutes? All right, we'll see.
I think that song is about an hour and 3. That song is about an hour and 63 minutes.
Jamie's including his naps afterwards. He's including naps in between.
Yeah, exactly. So 18 minutes.
No, let's keep it going. Breaks.
Exactly.
For some making out and touching and but yeah.
So Jamie said, I play that album on Screwed. Like Houston, we go slow with it.
Trust me. I done got through that album a couple of times.
Yeah. Next door neighbor comes like, hey man, if I see that Tank album one more time in a 4-hour period.
And you're going to hear it again.
Everybody knows when they
down.
You know what you're doing, Jamie.
And you're going to hear it
With
again.
the broom. Oh, not tonight. The game is on, brother. The game is on. A song I love to play is Flex by Mad Cobra. Classic 90s dance hall. Just,
Why do I don't know that song?
Yeah, you do. Sing it, Heath. Sing it, Heath.
No, I can't sing.
No, Jamie sings.
Time to have sex.
Yo, come on. You know this song.
Yes, I do know that song.
Yeah.
Of course you do. Yeah. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Like a cloud sitting on the wall, 7 days a week, I need to
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one, bro.
Yeah.
Jamie, if you can sing, all you got to do is probably sing to a lady.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't even need any tank.
But that's playing the pussy game.
Oh no, I don't think it would be.
Because you don't know me. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's buttons I know I can push that are just gonna be like me and him have talked about. If I sit and I really just, and I just realized this 2 weeks ago in therapy, keeping it 100, my ability to create intimate spaces. I could just weaponize that and create intimate spaces with women, and next thing I know, I'm in some intimate spaces. So everyone has like their gimmick or their thing or their ability, and you weaponize it and you just create a wash, rinse, repeat system.
Yep.
And 80, 90 bodies later, you're like, oh man, wow. I done been from London to the Bay. It's been hammer, go hammer, go hammer. The rest can't sing.
Listen, I'm saying that because I've done it before. There was a period where that was my calling card. I wore it on my sleeve. Oh yeah, I sing. Oh, sing something for me. Got him. If they ask, I already know I got it.
Yeah.
But now it's just like, you don't want to prostitute your gift. You don't want it all over the place. That's not what I want to be known for, especially with that gift. So that's not something I just put out to everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we want to share how folks can listen to your podcast, where they can go. Can you just give us all the things real quick?
We're at Love God, Love Sex Pod. All right. So Love God, Love Sex Pod, POD, Instagram, TikTok, the Love God, Love Sex Podcast, which is on Apple Podcasts. And we're also on Google Podcasts and Spotify. Getting ready to drop some new episodes pretty soon. And we're getting ready to drop a new website, www.lovegodlovesexpodcast.net. We have a couple of free ebooks that we developed. One on the importance of listening, creating lasting connections. Another one on going from dating to forever. What are some of the steps you can take to help create and foster a healthy relationship? And the last one is for the guys to go from first text to from flirt to dating. What does it mean to be a guy and to date according to what we consider our system of dating, as far as meeting and greeting and being able to woo and swoon and all that good jazz in a way that promotes, as we've been talking about this whole episode, humanity and good human interactions.
Awesome.
I love that.
Flirting is a skill that is so underrated.
It's lacking. It's lacking.
Yeah.
Very lacking.
Yeah.
Very
seriously.
true.
Takes a lot of effort.
So I'm excited about that. Thank you,
Yeah.
Keith and Jamie. This
Yes.
was everything I wanted it to be. Am I right?
Good.
Thank
Glad
you.
you're satisfied.
Thank you. Yes,
Same.
yes. We have to have them come back because there were so many things that just we couldn't get to in the amount of time. So, but yes, you guys were awesome, and we thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And we just wish you nothing but the best. Love your mission. Love what you guys are doing. So needed, so crucial, and it just helps to continue the conversation around sex and life and bodies and connection, which we're all about. So thank you guys for having us.
And we'd love to have you on our platform as well at some point.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Anytime.
Great.
Well, I am Stacy J with the Old School Love Lounge.
And I'm Toni, and we thank you so much for tuning into our podcast. Make sure you check us out on TikTok and Instagram, and we're at the Old School Love Lounge. What else, Stace? We're going to sign off?
Yeah, we're signing off.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're going to have sex. I don't know. That's
Yes.
on y'all. I don't know.
I'm not. So.
I'm here.